friends, and thanks for tuning in to another episode of the MonkeyBoy Presents, the DC Comics Superhero Collection by Eaglemoss, and today I have the review of issue number 40 for you, Mary Marvel. And for those of you that don't know, her name is Mary Marvel, not Shazam Mary. She was acquired by DC Comics once upon a time, back in the 50s or 60s, I want to say, after a rival publisher known as Fawcett Comics closed their doors. DC came in and bought a bunch of the characters and properties. They let them sit for too long, and in the interim, some of the names were purchased, copywritten, by other publishers like Marvel Comics, and Marvel Comics bought the name Mary Marvel along with Captain Marvel. So now, neither Captain Marvel nor Mary Marvel can appear on anything published or printed or merchandised by DC Comics unless her name appears as Shazam Mary, much the same way that Captain Marvel can only appear as Shazam on any merchandising and that sort of thing. Whew, okay, with that out of the way, we'll dive right into this character's magazine, which will tell you pretty much everything you need to know about the character of Mary Marvel here, and then we'll take a look at the figure itself, covering the good, the bad, and the ugly. Yeah, sort of torn about this figure, which you'll see once I get into the review part, or you can skip to that right now if you'd like to. I hope you sit back, relax, and enjoy issue number 40 of the DC Comics Superhero Collection, Mary Marvel. First up, the character section. Mary Batson is, of course, Billy Batson's twin sister. For those of you that don't know, Billy Batson is also known as Captain Marvel. And, of course, they share basically the same origin. Their parents were murdered while on an archaeological excavation in Egypt. Jump ahead a few years later, and Mary Bromfeld is attending a spelling bee championship in Fawcett City, where her long-lost twin brother Billy just happens to be covering it as a field reporter for the local radio station. Shortly after this discovery, they also shared some power with their best friend, Freddie Freeman. Still eager to prove that she could be just as good a hero as her twin brother, she adopted a new look and joined up with a version of the Justice League known as the Super Buddies. Not very long after this, the Rock of Eternity was destroyed by the Spectre, and Mary found herself powerless. She turned to Black Adam and begged for him to share some of his power with her, and was surprised when he actually gave all of his power to her. Mary hadn't planned on the instability of these new powers, so she attended a school known as Shadow Crest Academy to try and help her hone her new abilities. After being kicked out of Shadow Crest, Mary encountered the evil being known as Eclipso, who transported her to the planet Apocalypse and forced an encounter with Darkseid. Mary returned to Earth and landed in Themyscira, where she aided Queen Hippolyta and the Amazons in the rescue of their imprisoned Olympian gods. Next, we look at a couple of Mary's classic stories. First up, The Power of Shazam, Power Struggle. And this is a pretty epic story where the wizard Shazam has been trapped in a layer of hell, and the Marvel family attempts to rescue him, but they encounter all sorts of opposition in the form of a demon known as Blaze, the evil Captain Nazi, as well as the then still evil Black Adam. In the end, Mary ends up sort of saving the day. She and Billy travel to Hell, where she successfully saves Shazam from his imprisonment while Billy fights off these demons. It's a really fun, epic, action-adventure storyline that's definitely worth checking out. We also have Countdown to Final Crisis. And while Mary isn't the star of this miniseries, she's definitely a pivotal character. We find her slowly being corrupted by the powers that Black Adam has granted her, traveling to the planet Apocalypse, where she takes on the likes of Darkseid and the being known as Eclipso, eventually returning to Earth, rescuing the Olympian gods, and regaining her good, pure, innocent sort of abilities and power set. It really shows a lot of different qualities to her character. She goes through an emotional roller coaster, and it's really actually a pretty fun part of this miniseries. Mary's Allies and Enemies section features, of course, the Marvel family, and a really nice shot of the being known as Eclipso. And finally, the Original Thinking section continues the DC timeline with Part 31, Age of Reason. We learn that in 550 BC in India, a warrior known as Parashurama was defending his land and people from ancient supernatural beings known as Comaria. At around the same time in southern India, an ancient murderous cult was born that came to be known as the Reincarnators of the Master Eye. Here we have Mary Marvel. And I'm torn on this one, man. I'm very torn on this one. I guess I'm one of the lucky few that actually has a somewhat attractive Mary Marvel. From what I understand, the majority of them are extremely poorly painted, especially in the face. So I consider myself sort of lucky for that. This one, I think, looks pretty good. Some of the big things I've seen in pictures are a lot of the flesh tone paint bleeding into the hair, especially around the neck, where the neck and the hair meet. So she looks like she has no neck, basically, and lots of crossed eyes and that sort of thing. I consider myself pretty lucky. I like the sculpt of the skirt. The lightning bolt is hand painted on her chest there. I kind of like the way the hair is molded to look as though it's being kicked around by the wind, sort of like her skirt. And that's about all I really like. I mean, she's just kind of plain. It's the Raven syndrome again. I don't know why they chose this costume. I mean, I guess it was probably what she was in most recently, at least at the time. I would have much preferred her red and yellow costume, a la her big brother, well, her twin brother, Captain Marvel, or her white outfit that she wore for a while, with, you know, the yellow highlights and things, and the little cape and all that stuff. This is, I don't know, it seems like a cop-out. I like parts of her, but it's just kind of disappointing, really. Some better pictures in just a second. Mary stands atop the DC logo, and the underside of her base features her name along with serial number. And so you can see her in scale with some other figures. Here she is with the evil Darkseid. The rest of her teammates from the Super Buddies. And of course, a shot with the other members of the Marvel family, Black Adam, and her twin brother, Captain Marvel. As I said, I'm really torn about this figure. You know, she's not as bad as Raven. You know, there are bad choices on this one, like there were with Raven. Just not quite as severe, I guess you could say. It's another case of I really don't know what they were thinking with the design of this particular one. Let's see. We'll start with the good. I do like the face on mine. I consider myself very lucky because from what I understand, most of them were pretty ugly. They were poor paint jobs, crossed eyes, bleeding paint here and there, just overall not very good. Most people consider this one of the least attractive of the female figures in the line, so I think I got lucky in that regard. I really love her hair sculpt, really love the hair. I think it's fantastic. Love the highlighting, love the shading, love how it's wild and crazy and blowing around. Same thing with the skirt. The skirt sculpt is pretty nice, the way it looks like it's blowing around. The pleating on it, the fact that it's a slightly glossier black than the rest of the costume. The symbol is hand painted, but I do have issues with that I'll talk about in a second. The other thing on her that I like is, and I think is pretty good, are the boots. They're nicely detailed, and I dig the 1 foot lifting up and off the ground. There's a nice arch to the foot there. It's really well done, nice sculpt. And I will say it is a faithful version of this costume and this iteration of the character. I'm just baffled by why they went with this version. The bad, here we go. The logo, while it is hand-painted, it is wrong. They got everything on this costume right except for that aspect. It should be a white bolt in the center and then have a yellow or gold outlining, and you can almost see on here that it looks as though it was meant to be that way. You can see the lining inside the yellow of the lightning bolt, but they just painted the whole thing yellow for some reason, so I don't understand that. Don't like the clenched fists. Don't really care for the pose overall, with the exception of the 1 bent leg, but that I think is just nice sculpting. I don't think it's a nice pose. I just think it's cool the way her leg is lifted off like that. She's just disappointing. She's just boring. There's nothing breaking the figure up. The solid black color is just awful to look at. I don't understand why they put her in this costume. I don't get it. Like, she should have been, I think, in her white outfit. How great would it have been to have Black Adam next to Captain Marvel in his classic red and gold, and then Mary Marvel in her white and gold outfit. I just, with the little mini cape and the yellow boots and everything, I just think it would have been nicer to look at. I'm just baffled by the costume choice. Even if she wore her red and gold matching Captain Marvel costume, I would have preferred that over this one. I just really don't understand the thought process on this, especially since they took so much time to make Black Adam and Captain Marvel look like Golden Age, look classic, and they went with such a modern version of her. I don't get it. The ugly, nothing really ugly. She's a pretty solid figure. Don't want to pick her up by the base and hang her upside down or wag her around, because she's really only connected by the 1 leg. But not really anything breakable or fragile about her. Just disappointing overall, unfortunately. I do consider myself lucky, like I said, because I think I got one of the lucky few that has a decent paint job, but she's just kind of boring, you know. It had to happen eventually, though. We were on quite a run with some really dynamic, really cool characters, so, you know, the streak had to end eventually. she doesn't look so bad when she's standing with the other Marvel family. You can kind of tuck her behind Captain Marvel a little bit. But overall, it's kind of disappointed, to be totally honest, yeah. And I'll stop my rambling now, and thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please stay tuned for a quick teaser of the next issue. This one is going to be great. We're going from this, what I consider a pretty boring figure, to one of the most colorful, dynamic, and I think one of the greatest heroes in the DC Universe. Can't wait for you guys to tune in for that. Thank you for tuning into this. I'm, of course, your host, the Monkey Boy, aka Jay to his friends. Thank you for watching.